break out the sunscreen and watermelons, because in this week's episode of Ushio and Tora, we're going to the beach. It would only be a matter of time before we got the beach episode of Ushio and Tora, which seems to be a grand tradition for just about every other anime series. The good thing is, they do mix things up in this week's episode. Although it certainly does de-evolve into the whole Monster of the Week scenario, there are some important details in this week's episode, such as learning the true name of Tora. His actual name is Nagatobimaru, a name that he actually does not like whatsoever, because it's apparently a name that was given to him by humans, but it's a nice clue getting to learn a little bit more about his past. There's also some pretty crucial details about Ushio and even his mother, and you're gonna have to stick around at the very end of the episode to actually learn about that. There is a post-credit scene, so make sure to stay tuned for that. It's really important. But this week's episode was all about Ushio and Tora battling against this giant sea monster, which goes by the name of the Ayakashi, this giant, disgusting, demonic sea snake, which devours both humans and yokai, and actually consumes their souls. It literally just goes around the ocean, demolishing and eating everything, and yet, no one even knows it exists. That is until this week's episode when Ushio and Tora decide to have a massive battle with it, and that's because they have to save their friends, Nakamura, and this little kid by the name of Tatsuya. Now, there is two stories going on this week. Of course, we have the entire scenario with Tora, who's running out into the middle of the ocean just trying to get a little bit of breeze through his gigantic hair. Unfortunately, he runs into this weird demon who sort of looks over the oceans, and this demon asks for and begs for his help to try and kill this massive monster known as the Ayakashi. Tora, who's bored as hell, decides this sounds like a really fun idea. The problem is, this thing is really powerful, and it ends up swallowing him whole, and that's when he actually has to get some help from Ushio. And then we have this other story going on, where there's this little kid by the name of Tatsuya, who's this little punk, this little prankster, who's going around just making Ushio's life a living hell by kicking sand all over their gear, and literally putting sand into their coolers and just messing with them. It finally reaches a boiling point where Ushio can take it no longer, and he ends up just punching this kid right in the head. But unfortunately, he gets to learn that this kid actually lost his mother, he's severely depressed, and that's why he's acting out so much. So Nakamura, his friend, decides to go and sort of console him, save him from some bullies, and hang out with him and just have a good day at the beach. The problem is they decide to go out into the water when this giant demon just happens to be swimming around, and it literally ends up swallowing them as well as Tora. So now they're all stuck inside of this giant monster, so it's up to Ushio to actually make his way inside of the Ayakashi to save his friends and to destroy this giant creature. But really, the main theme of this week's episode is basically facing your fears, especially in the face of adversity. When things seem like they're going to be at their worst, you even need to sort of put on an act to make it seem as if you are being brave. Just doing that can actually help you get out of some really sticky situations, and that was no more evident than in this week's episode, because if you thought the giant sea snake that swallowed them was scary, its insides are absolutely terrifying, because it actually has these two gigantic maws, these mouths, which are filled with razor-sharp teeth, and it also has this giant eyeball, which it actually uses to consume everything, from humans to giant boats to frickin' souls. There are souls all up in this thing. It's a really disturbing creature, and eventually Ushio does make it inside because he actually cannot hurt it from the outside, and then he destroys this barrier, which actually it does not like being in natural sunlight. It's basically like a frickin' mogwai. But when he gets inside of it, it's still kind of a struggle. This thing is really powerful, and it's using all of its power to sort of like suck everyone in and try to devour them whole. It's only when they all start to work together that they're actually able to defeat this creature, and of course Tatsuya when he's able to overcome his fears because he wants to help his brand new friend Nakamura, who basically is like a mother figure to him. Without a doubt, my favorite part of the episode, though, is when they actually defeat this monster the way they do it. Basically, Ushio is riding on top of Tora, and he takes his spear and stabs it right into the top of the creature, and then they literally just, like, fly through its entire body and just fillet the entire thing, and it just explodes in a torrent of energy and demon blood. It's pretty freaking metal. Make sure to stay tuned. At the very end of the episode, there are some pretty crucial details. What's really interesting is that throughout the course of this entire episode, Ushio and Nakamura are able to relate to this kid Tatsuya because Ushio actually does not have a mother as well. This has been a very important plot point for the series. But at the very end of the episode, there is a massive revelation. That one water demon is actually talking to Ushio and Tora, and he lets him know that his mother is very much alive, and that it's a very ominous thing that she's alive, and that Tora should get away from Ushio, because it's just going to result in something bad. I'm not really sure where this is leading, but I really like this plot point. I think it's going to be really cool, and I can't wait to see if Ushio's mother is actually going to be an evil entity from the series, or maybe there's going to be another twist. Maybe something that actually involves the real name of Nagatobi-Maru. Maybe how he's actually related to the Outsuki family, like when he was actually sealed away. There's a lot of history that we still don't know yet, and they're just trying to reveal that little by little. It almost seems like they go on the schedule where one week we have a really important episode, the next week we go back to the Monster of the Week, and then we just sort of repeat that pattern. Despite that, this week's episode was still a lot of fun. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Ushio and Tora? Ushio and Tora at the beach, I honestly thought was going to be a really painful episode. The minute that I saw that they're at the beach, I'm like, okay, I can pretty much call how this is going to go. It's just going to be an annoying fan servicey episode, but it actually wasn't. It was a surprisingly heartwarming episode, which had some really cool action behind it, and had some pretty important lessons. And that's what I really love about this series. They sort of trick you with these important lessons as well. And I really liked the whole facing your fears in the face of adversity thing. It might seem a little, like, crazy. It might seem like something you shouldn't do, but it really is an important lesson to learn. There's going to be a lot of moments in life where you come to a wall or you come to something that seems inconquerable, but just changing your attitude about that situation can really change everything. You can really do just about anything. And it is a really cheesy lesson, but it really does work within the confines of this show. On the technical side of things, this week's episode looked pretty freaking awesome. I also really love the design of the monster in this week's episode, which is known as the Ayakashi, this big giant demonic sea snake, which was kind of like a combination of like a typical sea snake and kind of like a whale, the way its mouth actually looks. But it's really disturbing, and it's clearly one of the most powerful demons that we've seen from the show, because Tora was having a really tough time with it. And I honestly thought, this is going to be the easiest battle in the world. This thing's a sea creature. He's just going to use his lightning abilities to just completely fry the damn thing. But apparently its outsides are really tough, and it's its insides that are really vulnerable, especially at the very end of the episode when it reveals its weak spot, which is this gigantic eyeball stalk, which has all of these human body parts all over it. It's not until Ushio actually takes the beast spear and just stabs it right into the eye that it actually finally starts to get defeated, and then they can just start cutting it up. It's really freaking awesome. I also just like all the little details of all the different degrees of demons. Obviously, in Japanese culture, there are some demons which are malicious, and there are some which are just playful and happy, and then there's some that are there just to give information. Case in point, there's that one water demon. He was the old guy. I really love how when he actually meets Ushio on the beach, he doesn't just appear before him all simple like a ghost. I like how they actually change the atmosphere. Everything starts to go dark. There's this green lighting which appears. And because he's a water demon, he actually just drips out of this shower head, and you can actually just see his head appear, and then suddenly he's there in full form, actually dripping down. It looks really cool, and it's a nice effect. Not to mention, just there were some really cool action scenes this week of just Ushio running through the body of the giant demon snake. And of course, Tora, as he was flying across the ocean. He was definitely feeling a lot of freedom there. And the water effects in the show also just happened to look really good. I also really like the fact that they're still expanding on the side characters of the series. I honestly thought after last week's episode that Inoue was probably going to be like the unofficial like next member of Ushio and Tora's team, because she's actually met Tora. She's given him hamburgers. But that's not the case at all. It also seems like they're trying to bring in Nakamura, who I still think is a pretty interesting character, one of Ushio's very close childhood friends, and I'm guaranteeing that they're going to be some sort of love interest. And I love the fact that she's run into these demons multiple times, and she always seems to black out or forget about these demons. It's a funny little plot point, and it's really only a matter of time before she fully realizes that these demons are real and that they are associated with Ushio. But we're going to have to wait until we get there. Otherwise, this was still a very fun, beachy, summery episode of Ushio and Tora, and if you've been following the series, you should definitely check it out. It was one badass monster mash. So, I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5. It was a little cheesy and cliched at moments, but honestly, just like the rest of the series, this is just a fun anime series to watch, and I am really digging it. So, Ushio and Tora fans, definitely check it out. If you read the original manga version, or if you saw the OVAs, check out the brand new anime version. You might see something you like. You heard my thoughts about this week's episode, but I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about this week's episode of Ushio and Tora? What do you think is the deal with Ushio's mother? Do you think she's actually going to be some sort of evil being? Do you think she has ties to the original Outsuki clan, the ones that actually sealed away Tora? And what do you think's the deal with Tora and his real name, Nagatobi-Maru? Are we just going to have to wait and see a little bit more from that? What do you hope to see from the rest of the series? Please tell me in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it and share it with your friends, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews and our weekly podcast show, The Powerful Nerdcast, which you can find on our channel, and you can also download for free at Rogue Intel and at iTunes. I'll put links for all that in the description box below. But the best way to support our channel, as always, is to simply watch our videos, comment on them, and to share them with your friends. So thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.